Welcome to the Impact Over Optics podcast, a place where real progress shines beyond appearances and distractions. Here, voices from across industries come together to share wisdom, stories, and strategies that remind us what's possible when purpose leads the way. Because true progress is not measured by how it looks, but by the impact it leaves behind. Let's get started.
Welcome to Impact Over Optics, the podcast where we go beyond appearances and focus on what really moves the needle: authentic leadership, purposeful results, and lasting impact. I'm your host today, Jim Viscusi, and today I'm joined by Adriana Zupa-Fernandez. With over 20 years of experience in the pharmaceutical industry, Adriana is a published author, speaker, and recognized thought leader in many areas, including sustainability and inclusion. She's followed a self-described nonlinear, non-traditional career path across drug discovery, clinical trials, global inclusion, and sustainability strategy, including being a key contributor to the discovery and launch of the FDA-approved therapy Sotyktu, a treatment for moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. While in the lab, she partnered with HR on benefits and policy reform and collaborated on inclusion and sustainability initiatives, which led her to transition into leadership roles at Bristol Myers Squibb. She's now focused on health environment nexus, leading programs that address climate and health resilience as a newly appointed Director, Global Occupational Health Resiliency. Finally, Adriana is a proud Philadelphian, actively supporting local causes, including the skateboard scene and animal rescue, with a shout out to the Lucky Pups organization. Adriana, welcome to the podcast. I'm so grateful for your time. We've known each other for a while, and you've shared many of these stories with me at different times, but it's still so impressive to roll them all out as a part of your professional narrative. Thank you for being here.
My goodness. Thank you for having me. I am so genuinely grateful to be here. And I feel like one of my proudest accomplishments is being able to go through the executive MBA program with you at Drexel. And the best thing about going through that program was the friendship that I feel like we created, Jim. So grateful to be here.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, Adriana, I'm so touched. For those listening to the podcast, Adriana and I have had a chance to many adventures together, going through many of the experiences through the Drexel program and others, and it's just been such a pleasure to be your friend.
Likewise.
Adriana, with all of this, can you tell us about a project that you're currently working on that you're particularly proud of or excited to share?
Okay, so I told Jim beforehand I did not prepare, and that's the truth. So I'm not going to share a project. I'm going to share, because it's a recent accomplishment or project, right? So I'm going to share the fact that I'm so proud to be in this new role at Bristol Myers Squibb, a role that's dedicated to occupational health resiliency. So specifically focused on our workforce adaptability when it comes to health and safety. And, I'm super lucky to work for leaders that believe that this role is important. And I'm so proud that the work that I've been doing around the health environment nexus helped to shape this role. So I have a lot to do in this role. I have to prove the value of this role, right? And it's making me quite nervous, to be honest, but it's such a tremendous opportunity. And as the WHO specifically calls out climate as the biggest threat to human health, I will focus tremendously on that and leverage my past experience in the sustainability team as I carve out this new path.
Oh my gosh. Adriana, I'm so excited for this new role for you as well, because I know you had many opportunities at BMS when you were looking at different places you can take your career. And yet this is such a passion of yours that we've discussed many times. I'm super, super excited for you to have this opportunity.
Thank you. I'm so grateful.
Yeah. So maybe even expand on that a little bit. What would you say would be the most meaningful impact you can have in this work? And why specifically is that important to you?
I think the most meaningful impact that I can have in this work is making sure that as we do this work, we're thinking about equity and vulnerability. Resiliency is something that is harder for certain populations, right? And our societal norms, historical oppression, a lot of the frameworks that are in place in our society make it really difficult for certain people to be resilient, especially when it comes to health and safety. So in my opinion, that's my biggest opportunity, is ensuring that I am considering all perspectives, all experiences, all types of people in the work that I'm doing, and ensuring that we're not leaving folks out and that we are listening to folks and listening to what they need as we're figuring out the path for this work. So bringing them into the conversations right at the start.
That's really great. You said a lot in there about how you want to try and reach out to so many of those different populations and be able to make sure that you hear those voices and be able to take those different things into account. So that's a sort of an external focus. But for you as a leader or a coach, how do you look at that and say, how do I bring that same mindset internally to my team, leading with all of that authenticity that you just shared?
Yeah. So, Jim, whenever I've started to lead a team, I always go into it knowing that I am not the expert, right? Knowing that my team, they are the experts, and I need to ensure that I listen to them and I understand their ways of working, their communication styles, their experience, their expertise, and quite frankly, lift them up to do it. I feel that being a leader is not about me being up there. It's about enabling the folks that work alongside of me to be up there and to be heard and to be seen. So the first thing that I do whenever I lead a team is really carve out time to listen. And I know that I am not the one that has all of the answers. I know that if I try to be, missteps are going to be made along the way.
That's fantastic. With all of that, what I hear is a lot of lessons learned that probably happened in your career over time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that sounds like a huge leadership lesson. But is there any other leadership lesson that you learned kind of the hard way, but you really wouldn't trade for anything else that sort of informed you over the years?
Oh my gosh, so many. I don't know where to start. I mean, early on in my career, so I started off in the lab, space scientist, bench scientist. I was one of the few women and also definitely one of the few Hispanics in my department. And I remember the first time I gave a presentation to my whole department. I was so excited and I went in there very much Adriana. I was talking quickly. I was very peppy, a lot of animation, a lot of using my hands, right? And it was so interesting because when I left the presentation, and it was a pretty big crowd, I felt like I nailed it. And my supervisor actually had to pull me off to the side and give me feedback afterwards, right? He was like, you were a little bit much. You got to tone it down. This is a scientific audience. These are folks who are not necessarily extroverts. You have to meet them where they are. Okay, so another thing that I believe in and I've deployed, so to speak, in terms of building a team and strengthening connections with folks as a leader is that I really do try to create a safe space for us to share our missteps, since I was just speaking about missteps. And, I just celebrated Dia de los Muertos this past weekend, and I actually coined our space in our team meetings, the Dia de los Muertos space, where we would share, go around the room, right? Go around the virtual room or the physical room and talk about the missteps that we've made recently so as to avoid making those same missteps again. A lot is to be learned from mistakes, right? Some of the most brilliant ideas come from mistakes. And that is something that I have done in all of the teams that I've led. And I've gotten tremendous feedback around that. So just wanted to share that.
That's fantastic. So in that, that story of you getting that feedback, that's certainly an opportunity for you to look at that and say, take it positively, take it negatively along the way. How did you, in either that situation or another, maintain a clarity and conviction that you were on the right path, you were leading authentically when you got that kind of a pushback?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. I think that's a tricky one, Jim. I think that's going to be different person to person. Our experiences, our cultures, where we're raised, where we're working, that's all going to contribute to that. I think I always lean on understanding the context in which I'm working, understanding the people with whom I'm working, but also making sure that I'm anchoring into still being who I am and following my passion and my purpose. If I feel like I cannot do that in the context of where I'm working and who I'm working with, I actually think that's a sign that I might not be in the right place and working with the right team. So I always do fall back on that. Like I am always pulse checking with myself. Like, am I still being true to who I am? Am I still following what I think are my core values, right? I always align with institutions where I feel like their core values align with mine. I try to make sure that I'm working alongside of people with in the same regard, right? I do think it's a balance though, because there are certain things about myself, and I'll just be very frank, that I can't bring into the workplace.
Right.
And you have to know that, and be mindful of that, and just, understand that when you're going to work to do a job.
To context. Yeah, that's great. So you talked about being aligned with the work and yourself and how you use that as a touchstone. So how do you then take that to your team and try to make sure that you're measuring what really matters in the work that you're trying to do?
Yeah. Um, I think that measuring, so measurement, whenever I think about measuring impact, measuring success, I always know that it has to tie back to the business. So there's a very traditional way that I measure, right? Like I always consider ROI in a very traditional sense, return on investment. I also consider it in a non-traditional sense of risk of inaction. When I'm looking at measuring success of individuals, I look at it from a traditional lens as well, ensuring that they're meeting our yearly objectives, ensuring that they're leveraging the company's values and behaviors. But then there is the piece of it that I lean on the team to dictate to me, and let me share that with you. So I may think that I know what's important when it comes to a KPI or a measurement or an impact metric. I need to pulse check that with the people who are actually going to be impacted, right? So whenever I am looking at measuring success, whether that is a project, whether that is measuring the success of my team in their behavior or in their um, abilities to deliver work, I need to ensure that those measurements are things that my team is aligned with. So where I'm going with this is, I think that as leaders, whenever we are setting up our strategies and our visions, and we're getting to the point of, hey, how do we measure this? How do we assess value? We should not do that in a vacuum or in a silo. And we need to make sure that whatever KPIs we plan to measure at the end have been pulse checked by the people, the communities that are going to be impacted. Because I have seen way too many leaders measure the wrong thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that to me seems so core to your belief in inclusion that it becomes just perfectly natural for me to hear that from you, that you want to be inclusive in making sure that everybody who is affected by the measurement both understands the measurement and has an opportunity to have a voice in the measurement, making sure that you all come together for common purpose. That's amazing. That's really great.
I try.
And I'm sure it's not easy by any doubt. But let me switch to you for a second. So what would you say is a regularly practiced habit or ritual that helps you stay grounded in your purpose? How does Adriana rebuild and refill her cup?
Nature walks for me. So I am a sustainability person, right? And I'm working in health resiliency and looking at the climate health intersection. So that might sound like, oh, of course. But I look beyond just, you know, looking at nature to spark ideas. I look at nature as such a strong reminder of the importance of listening. And also, I look at nature and understand how incredibly innovative and brilliant it is, especially when humans don't insert themselves into it. So when I'm out in nature and I'm taking a walk, I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about the vast networks under the ground that we don't see that are communicating intricately and gorgeously to ensure that nature that is miles away is properly functioning. And I think about the way that so often as human beings, we can insert ourselves in this system of experts and assume that we are the expert and actually mess things up. So that is something that I do and I purposefully do so that I can self-reflect and remind myself to listen to the folks around me and also pay attention to different things that you might not necessarily consider to be innovative or to be the experts, right? Because as I shared earlier, oftentimes like the most brilliant ideas come from the least expected places.
Yeah, that's great. Having worked with you a lot, I have seen you put that into practice on many occasions. So you definitely walk that talk for sure. But let me try to give you an opportunity to expand on that. So if you were to look and say, is there something that surprised you as an idea or a principle for another discipline that you were able to bring into these many things? You talked about your nature walks. Is there something else like that you would look and say, yeah, this really fits in the way I lead?
Oh my God, that's such a good question. I was a ballerina for 18 years and clearly got a lot of discipline from being a ballerina. But I think tied to what I just shared, so much of dancing is understanding when it's best for you to be in the background or a supporting role and allowing the other dancers to shine, right? Or being a supporting role so that you can all dance together into those crazy beats of music in a way where together you are able to create magic, right? And especially for that audience all the way at the top, the nosebleed seats, like they get to see you as dancers moving together, creating incredible formations in sync with music. And where I'm going with this is to say, as a leader, a lot of times you have to recognize when to stand back. And going back to what I said earlier, lean on your experts, let the folks shine. Obviously, collaboration, working together, and the listening piece, listening to the music, but also listening and paying attention to everyone around you on stage. Yeah, I think I learned a lot of that from being a ballerina.
That's fantastic. That's really cool. Let me give you one more. If listeners were to walk away with just one message from you, what would it be?
I always get asked, like, what's my 5-year plan? And I think it's totally cool to have a 5-year plan. It's totally cool to have a plan. I admittedly don't have a plan. And I wish that more people said that that was okay. Because in not having a plan, I ended up doing some really amazing things with my career. I have not done the linear career route, right? I'm very open about the fact that I have not. I have followed my passions. I have been very outspoken. And I am so grateful to have worked for an organization and other organizations that let me do that. And as a result, have done things that I never thought I would do and been able to bring myself into those jobs. So I guess I would say a career path can be a curvy path, right? It doesn't have to be a traditional linear straight path. It can be a curvy path. And sometimes the curvy paths are the most fun. And honestly, the paths where you learn quite a bit, learn the most.
Yeah. Well, in all of your curvy paths, it's been delightful to hear the passion that you've always brought when we work together, when we've interacted, when I've heard your stories of the past and the things you've contributed to. That curvy path has definitely allowed you to be an amazing human being. And I'm so grateful for your time.
I'm grateful for your time too, Jim. This was a blast, and I would gladly come back any day. And I promise to be more prepared next time.
You were brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on the Impact Over Optics podcast. I'm Jim Viscusi, and remember, authentic change always outlasts appearance. Until next time, lead with purpose and leave a real mark. Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us on the Impact Over Optics podcast. We hope today's insights sparked fresh ideas and reminded you of the power of purpose-driven work. Please share this episode with others who believe in real change And join us again as we continue to look beyond appearances and focus on the impact that truly lasts.